Now that I'm thinking about it, I probably should have examples of people with this. I don't, but it's, I might try and get that, but you want to get your own collection. I've done it for my family, and you look the people you know in your family, your bosses, your relationships, the people you've been close to. You know, you almost have to live with someone to be with their moon. You could you can work with someone for years, and you may not see their moon that much until you've sat down and ate together. Or you're vegetarian, or you're not, or how you're eating, or you came from here, or came from there. What habits you've had? It's the result of all your habits on this moment. But all the habits on your moment is translated as the same thing as this moment and all the memories you're dragging with you into this moment. And we're seeing how that habit processes or gets prioritized in your life. So someone with the moon very high, it's important to be nurturing. They're going to be socially functionally. We're going to want to take care of people, take care of things, do things. They could run a restaurant. It could be the nurse or a doctor. It could be wanting to take care of things in a functional way. They might feel they need to do that to feel secure, even if they had to leave their home and to go do it. But someone with the planets down, the moon way below, they would be much more subjective and not so inclined to feel, I got to go play this role out in the world. I got to live the right way to myself. Okay. So, puzzles. We're looking at it. Keep the moon a puzzle. It keeps you wondering. It keeps you open. Don't be too quick to define it. You say, oh, look at that. There's one way it's working. And look for it rather than define it. You're defining your moon. You're living it. Someone else is doing the same with theirs and collecting their own pocket full of memories. You know, and I often say memories are the chains we drag along with us, that anybody that we meet, we hit them with our memories. If you know me, well, you got to know I went through this. You got to know I've been divorced, or you got to know I've been through this. We meet someone in the moment now, and we diminish the moment by saying, my condition is you have to know all these things that happened to me. And you don't really have to know. It might be a lot better if we didn't have to know. We just were able to be in the moment. But these things spill out from inside of ourselves, from outside of ourselves, and this is the moon's functioning. We would feel a lack of being here if it weren't alive like this. But when it gets dark, it really is bad habits imposing on other people, like codependencies or addictions or other problems. They start to be things that affect everything affects your behavior, but some things affect you eat. I mean, you can only go on 4 or 5 cups of coffee a day for so many years before you start to get sick or overhyper. Same with sugar, same with anything. What's healthy? We don't even know. We just go along. But if you're used to hot dogs and chips and a beer and going to the ball game, every time you go to the ball game, you feel you need to have those things to feel you're there. Not necessarily true, but it helps to build up the memory and the feeling of security. The memories reinforce being here in the moment. Okay. So when we when we see our pillar, the horoscope layers, we see the pillar at the top. We have the signs coloring the planets. At the bottom, we have the circle of the houses, and in between, we have the planets. Each planet is a different layer, different speed, different layer of consciousness. So we're dealing with the most basic, the moon, the bio link between you and your mom, you and your home, your inner feelings, your outer feelings. All of these things are tied up in the moon. It's not necessarily a rational thing. But if I feel this way, this is how I've always processed. This is what will make sense to me. If you're trying to reach someone for behavior, for therapy, boy, knowing how their moon processes is really important. Okay, so to change behavioral patterns and knowing where the angles are, which requires, you can know where the moon is in the signs, but to know it in the houses, it's all based on knowing the time of day. And most people don't know it for sure within 4 or 5 or 10 minutes. So it's somewhere in there. So you get pretty close to it. If you got the time to the minute, that's even better. Exactly. But generally, even if you got it, it's hard to know for sure if it's exactly there. You just work with that, and you can see the motivation. You see the status. You're going to see how you project. You can see how you react. And you have these things already set up And then you put your moon there and you see how the moon's affected, how the moon adds itself to the wheel of the houses. Okay, so with the houses and the signs, but with the houses specifically, there's two directions you can take it. We're born in the center and we spin out into the world, and we're going out into a bigger and bigger world, into bigger and bigger cycles of expansion, of experience out in the world, and we're trying to discover it all. But when we get heartbroken or things, people die or things end, there is a process where your spiritual life begins to go into the inner center instead of going out further around the wheel of woe or prayer wheel or whatever. If you turn it into a prayer wheel, that starts to put the feelings back into oneself. And as it's going into yourself, you get centered and you get your feelings within yourself, and you become much more wholesomely integrated. And getting to your center is the spiritual work. Being centered is the spiritual work. Being out on the wheel is the worldly activities and enterprises. They can only last, good or bad, for as long as you've invested in them. Once the car runs out of gas, you're going to have to put more gas in, or it's not going to go. So, okay. Now, we have the rising, the setting, above, below. As we put them together, we get the four qualities of intuition, thinking, sensation, and feeling. Most people are aware of these intuition, thinking, sensation, feeling from sort of Jungian psychology, and they're basically based on the signs, on the fire, the water, the air, and the earth. You know, so the but the this is more based on the integrity of the quadrants of your chart. So it's a deeper and more lucid way of using these terms. And almost the sections of the house almost define these categories far better than just saying fire, water, air, earth. You can make that association and you can see it in the signs to a good degree. But when you're coming to the houses, when you have the two subjective sides below the horizon are our feelings and our intuitions. The two objective sides out in the world is how we think about things and our sensation, our sensitivity to each other to be able to function. Then it becomes very clearly distinctive. The two qualities of function, two phases of functioning, the two phases of being. And of each one, of the subjective being, we have half of it's rising, half of it's setting. So the subjective being, when we're motivated to put our package together, to build up an identity, that's it. We do this intuitively. It's the subjective, it's rising subjective. It's coming from my seat to put my image together, waking up to get together to go out in the world. It's not when you're out in the world, it's just getting it together so you can get out the door. That's the intuitive side. But in that intuitive side comes a lot of intelligence, visions, development of personal insights that don't have anything to do with other people, not really, but there's what you got to do, and you got to try and get up and get going towards this. So why we get up in the morning, why we don't? This is the intuitive side of it's subjective, but it's rising. Why move? Why not just stay in bed all day? Why not, why go? Because I got to do something. Or there's something we're projecting to do that we're motivated to do, and then we intuitively see how we can go towards it. Then as soon as it gets above the horizon, it starts being the objective side. But as soon as it gets objective, we start thinking about who we're affecting, what we have to say, what we have to do, where we have to go, what we have to do, what our plans are, who we're going to meet, what we're going to say to them, what the schedule is. This is all the thinking. This is projecting our thinking, our ideas, in a functional way. And it comes out as thinking about who knows what, who said what, do you remember this, do you remember that? So this is the thinking quadrant. So as soon as you get past the midheaven and you start on the setting side, you have the setting, reacting, and sensational, and objective. So reacting objectively. To react objectively is to be sensitive. You push me, I'll move out of the way, or I'll push back. Things are moving. You've done this, oh, you're okay, you're not okay. What's that? There's the interchange of interrelating in a functional way. Any good relationship. I'm going to do this. I better call the wife or call the husband. I'm doing this. I'll be a little bit late. Okay, I got to do. Okay, and it's just it's things you deal with. It's not big upsets. It's just a necessity to deal with these, to be functional as a team, as a partnership. So that's not just marriage partner. It's anybody you're relating to. It's how you relate to anybody. The sensation side, but that's the objective, functional side. As soon as it gets below the descendant, it goes to the descendant, goes to subjective reacting. You're taking it personally. It becomes a feeling. The sensation, you have a feeling about the sensation. You've made it more personal than it really needs to be. What do you mean you were an hour late and you're talking to your old boyfriend? What? You know, like you're taking something personally. Someone insults you. Someone just says something stupid to someone else, but they left you out. And suddenly it's gone from being just sensation to taking it personally. Then all the great creative things are stimulated by personal reactions, by feeling. The feeling, if you're studying and the teacher likes you, it's going to be easy to do work because you feel good. If you're playing a game and you feel and people like you and are having fun, it's going to be easy to play. But the minute you get negative energy coming out or bad reactions, you get bad feelings, that's going to be hard to perform and play. So the importance of feeling good has a tremendous effect on your integrity, your health, who you are. So we put out, we come in. So when the moon is rising or setting, now we're looking, is it rising above or below the horizon? Is rising, is it subjective rising? Is it intuitive? Or is it thinking? So when the moon's in the intuitive side, it's expressing itself irrationally. It fits right in the habits, the feelings, the moods, they affect the way one thinks. And that can be low level, or it can just be thinking like the gang, or picking up the prejudice of the family or the neighborhood, and be thinking and just intuitively going along with it. Your common sense is tied in there. You intuitively, I've come from here, I've come from there, getting myself together like this. But that's the intuitive side. So if the moon's there, that getting yourself together, that acting on your motivations instinctively, intuitively, I can do this or I can't do this, or the feeling of that moon is going to come in and affect that very strongly. But when it goes up, not going to be rational. In fact, it's not even going to be sensitive. See, intuition is really personally driven. I see something, I feel something, I'm going on something. It's really different than sensation. What are you doing? What's happening? Do you think I should do this? Do you think I do that? That's sensation. That's not intuition. See, intuition, I got a vision, I got to write this, I got to draw this, I got to, like the mountain in Close Encounters, I got to build this. It's irrational, but intuitive. So that's the subjective side, your intuitions. You put them together, they get you together, and then you go project them out into the world. And as you start influencing people with your intuitions, you start thinking about your effect on others, on other people's reactions to you. You become functional, and you're thinking. So if the moon comes up into this thinking quadrant, you're going to have feelings and instincts and basic needs about where you fit in, about who you're supposed to know, who's a friend, and you're going to be thinking about it all the time. So the moon is going to make you reflect on the thoughts of people and of who you know and of what you're collecting and what you're doing and its effect on people. And your memory is going to go back thinking about all the times, if this happened to me, if this friend did this to me, and then you remember all the times other people did things for you, or if this person did a bad thing, do you remember all the bad things that other people have done? Like the memory goes into this thinking functional quadrant. And your memory, you're reflecting, is really, you're in the moment now, you're being sensitive to the moment, and it's pulling out memories relating to that. They can be good or bad. And the memories that you're pulling up in this moment are determining your sense of security or your sense of stability, that you're feeling okay or not. Okay. So we really have dealt with each of these in the first two categories. Here we're just taking some time to work them together, to see the rising and the objective, and see the need of the moon to be thinking about where you're going and what you're doing, to get a plan to follow your feelings in the thinking quadrant.